Welcome to the ITSP Magazine Podcast Network, a modern, innovative multimedia platform, broadcasting ideas and connecting minds. Every company has a story to tell, from the small startup to the large enterprise, and everything in between. This is one of them. We hope you enjoy this brand story conversation.
Hello everybody, this is Sean Martin. I'm coming to you live, recorded live anyway, on location from RSA conference. And as you know, if you listen to my show, Redefining Cybersecurity, I get to talk to cool people about cool stuff. And this is one of those topics that I love talking about. I forget how many we've done of these now, where we get to look at the bad bot report from Imperva. No question, the industry looks to this report to understand what's going on with respect to bad bots, automated traffic on the internet, and Imperva does an amazing job with this, and I'm thrilled to have Erez on to talk about the 11th edition. Let's dial this up to 11, Erez.
Yes,
how do we do
please. So,
we're
first of all,
we're going to have some fun.
Yeah. So thank you for having me. As you said, 11th edition of the Bad Bot Report. I'm super excited to be talking about it. I'm a big nerd for the topic of bots and bot management. I think it's a very unique kind of privilege for me to be able to work on this report that we've done for the 11th year now. Really goes to show how many years we've been covering this topic of automated traffic. And this year's report actually is based off almost 6 trillion blocked bad bot requests that went through the Imperva network throughout the past year. So it's a lot of data to dive into. And yeah, we can dive into some key stats if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's give folks a quick word about you and your role on this, because I think that's an important piece.
Of course. So first of all, Erez Hasson, I'm a senior product marketing manager at Imperva, a Thales company. I'm working on our bot management product and our client-side protection product. And this has been the 4th year I've been working on this report. And just on a personal note, it's exciting for me every year because again, that data is working together with the threat research team. And every year I'm excited to see what is it going to look like. Because obviously as a person who studies this throughout the year and sets a bunch of Google alerts on bot management, bot attacks, and gets a bunch of articles every day, I come into this with a set of predictions, expectations maybe, but eventually the data is the data. So it's nice to see whether or not it clicks with what I've predicted or doesn't. So yeah.
Yeah, so there's the traffic, there's the threats in the traffic, there's the impact to customers. I'm sure we're going to talk about all that stuff. Let's start with maybe an overview of the last 11 years. Anything stand out to you in terms of where things started 11 years ago and where they sit now? Is there much more? I presume there's a lot more bot-based traffic.
Exactly. Bots have come a long way. I mean, scraping has existed for as long as search engines were essentially available. But the more nefarious, more malicious use cases, I would say some walking on the gray line use cases are not specifically illegal, but are also not very nice to legitimate users of the internet, have been around for a couple of years. Some interesting trends that happened throughout the past 10 years was that at certain years, bad bot traffic was around 20 to 25%. There was a certain year where, I believe it was 2014, that scraping by search engines have been very aggressive. And then you've seen a large amount of traffic actually came from good bots. But what we're seeing in recent years, I think, is kind of settling down of the trends, because there was a certain year where still a lot of new internet users have now been able to actually use the internet. So mobile devices have become much more common across the world. Internet connection has become much more common across the world. So there were a couple of years where you saw the human traffic just above 60%, which was fairly high as compared to what we see today, which is, it's almost a 50-50 split today. So it's 49.6 is automation, where the 50.4 is human. But there were a couple of years when new internet users were kind of shifting that towards the human.
So it's 50% me, the human, 50% my co-founder, Marco, the machine. That's what we'll go with that. Now, but I want to talk about why that 50%. People might wonder. I think for folks in security, you look at applications, they might say, I know why. But I have a feeling it's the applications and machine to machine, app to app API stuff is a big part of that. No?
Absolutely. I mean, the proliferation of APIs has changed the game in the recent, I would say 2 to 3 years. We're seeing much more of that automated traffic targeting APIs. So to give some of the high level stats from the report, which I think matters, obviously the big ones that we just kind of cover that people always ask about, it's the what percentage of traffic was automated. So we said it's 49.6, and you can take that and break it down into 32%, which was actually bad automation or bad bots. And then around 18% were good bots. So, the scrapers that Google uses, or just to index web pages or even price comparison websites, as long as it's okay with retailers to scrape prices and provide users with the best prices. So that's part of the good automation. And then the bad automation is scraping that's not allowed. And then some other examples are account takeover, which is obviously more malicious in nature, trying to take over user accounts using bots in different techniques. So that's the high level stuff. And then when you're talking about bad bots, we also classify those by the level of sophistication. Essentially, that sophistication means how well or not at all they try to evade being detected on the internet. So what techniques they employ in order to evade being detected. So for that, we have 3 different categories, which is simple, moderate, and advanced. The simple ones, obviously, most likely are scripts that are not even trying to hide their identity or evade being detected. Moderate ones, you add to that some more techniques like headless browser, puppeteer, stuff like that, essentially browser automation. And then the more advanced ones usually have a set of techniques that includes browser automation, rotating proxies like residential proxies, mimicking mouse movements, defeating CAPTCHAs and stuff like that. So 60% of those 32 bad bots, 32% are actually either moderate or advanced, which we like to call evasive because they're the ones actually, I would say, self-aware and trying to evade being detected.
Yeah. It's fascinating, this space. And I want to talk a bit about maybe some scenarios. I don't know if these have changed over time. I can recall a good 10, 11 years. The airline industry being one competitor targeting another, buy seats and basically sell out the plane without actually paying for any seats, and made them go out of business, if I'm not mistaken. That's like 10 years ago or so. Where have things gone recently? Because I just had a chat with Nani Singh.
Yeah.
And she was painting a scenario around a restaurant, where a restaurant has an application that's an API-driven menu, that then's an API-driven ordering system. How is that a scenario that could be targeted by bots, and maybe some other examples?
I have a simple equation that I like to say is that essentially high demand with low availability equals bot interest. Okay. So whatever has a high demand and low availability.
Consistent?
It's been consistent. So whether it be the restaurants that we just brought up, whether it be concert tickets or sport events tickets or sneakers, they always drop these limited edition sneakers that there's like a first come, first serve. But what is a first come if the bot's first, So that's an issue. Around 2020, we saw PlayStation 5s also because there was a chip shortage and it was very difficult to get your hands on a PlayStation 5. So bots were running that market for a good year. You couldn't get one without at least trying to go through like third-party marketplaces and get those for almost sometimes even double the price. So yeah, anything that has a high demand. And the travel industry in particular is always an interesting one because there are a bunch of use cases that are very relevant to that industry. As you mentioned, competitors looking at your inventory, your seat inventory, you're trying to beat you at the market, so they're scraping your prices. There are also specific metrics that the industry cares about, like a look-to-book ratio. It's essentially the ratio of people who actually book the flight from just looking at it. So having bots just scrape it for availability messes up that ratio for those teams that care about it, the marketing teams.
That's an algorithm that changes how well their programs are doing, or changes the price.
Yeah, and of course you have the loyalty program, so account takeovers for trying to grab miles off accounts and things like that. And you have seat spinning is another unique one to the industry, which talks it's essentially about sort of like inventory hoarding, so grabbing seats using bots, just holding them so legitimate users can't get those seats. And then you're denying legitimate users, but you're also hurting the bottom line of that airline because no one's actually booking that flight, ending up with empty flights.
So you mentioned earlier that some of this may not be illegal, and I can probably paint a couple scenarios in my mind where you want this to be available. I think airlines want their inventory and their pricing available for aggregators and brokers to have access to it, right?
Right.
But then the bots have access to it too. And so you want it to be available, but only to some people, legitimate people. It's not illegal for some of the stuff, unethical, maybe close to illegal. So how does that weirdness of we need it that way, we don't like it that way, and we can't really do anything legally to protect ourselves. So how does that happen?
It's a really good question. And it's one of the reasons why I like being in the field, in bot management specifically, because it's not a clear-cut security use case. So, I mean, there's a lot of different teams in the organization that are involved or that it's impacting. As I just said, like marketing teams, they care about their conversion rates, their ratio of look to book. So there's a bunch of teams involved in it. And this just makes it much more challenging when you're facing a threat that's, as you said, it's not illegal. I'll just give you a small anecdote. I've been working on a deck and I've been looking at some online websites that sell bots. And it's not the dark web. It's just there. You can search for it and you will find it. And they'll strictly say, oh, we can defeat bot management solutions. We'll give you rotating residential proxies. Specifically, actually ones that talk about like buying certain sneakers or ones dedicated to booking restaurant appointments. They're all there on the internet, and it's completely, well, it's, I don't know if it's illegal, but obviously it's not illegal. So
Right.
it's right there. And then what that means is that organizations have to fend for themselves.
Yeah, it's unreal. And I wanted to, I don't know if you have any other stats over the 11 years. I mean, it's impressive to have 11 years of this data. Any other industries that stand out, or regions, or any use cases that come to mind?
Sure. I can say one thing, and I'll talk into the industry specifically, is that there's one thing I also like to say, working on this report for a couple of years now, is that it's not only the level of automation that you see at a certain industry. There might be an industry like the gaming, I believe, had 57% of traffic come from bad bots. You should also be looking, there's a second chart in the report that, just as I said, 60% of bad bots were either moderate or advanced. So there's a chart that talks specifically about the sophistication level for each industry. And I personally believe that this is a more telling sign of your bot problem as an industry or as a business than just the level of automation that's on your website. Because the more advanced that traffic is, that means the more persistent they are, and they have a much better reason to target you, and they're not going to go away if you do not have a solid bot management strategy. So some of those industries that had the high ratio of sophisticated bots, law and government, to no one's surprise, obviously the travel and airlines also very high, retail, financial services. So that is by the industries, you can figure out that there's a solid incentive for attackers to target these specific industries.
Yeah. The intent and the capabilities make most people an easy target. I think, I don't know that we're still having an issue of we're not a target. Most companies saying that. I think most realize they probably are, but this data proves.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
everybody's a target.
It's a common, we don't have a bot problem.
Right.
It's a common thing. Yeah.
So let's go here. I want to, a lot of research here, and maybe you want to tie in some of your research team capabilities as well. And because what I'm picturing is amazing set of data, an incredible group of people. It's interesting, but also valuable to an organization to say, I operate in this space, I have these use cases, I have these types of technologies in place, and I see this kind of traffic, therefore I probably have an issue with X, Y, and Z related to this report. So I can envision an organization, security team, leadership team, practitioners, even some of the business leaders saying, here, let's look at this report and understand how we map to this. And therefore we can change our security programs and perhaps our security processes as well to mitigate some of these challenges, mitigate some of these risks. So how does that play in from a customer perspective? You're working with them to translate the report, basically is a short question, translate the report into action.
Yeah. First, the report, as you said, it offers the industry data But it doesn't stop there. I think one of the things that's important to me with this report is that it becomes an educational piece for these specific personas. I think everyone that's handling or having the problem with bots in one way or another is that the report covers everything from defining bots to what is a good versus a bad bot, how even a good bot could be a problem. For example, if you're a marketing persona at a company, even good bots skewing up your analytics data can affect your decision making. You might be spending money where you shouldn't be spending money because you thought that's valuable traffic, but it was just automated traffic, regardless of its nature. So there's the impact of that. And then other than the industries and talking about how each industry suffers from it, there's a bunch of charts that I always like to include at the appendix, which talk about the different use cases, the telling signs of those use cases, the impact, and what industries it usually affects, because some bot use cases, they cross the industry. So if you have a login endpoint, it doesn't matter what industry you are, you're going to be a target of an account takeover attack. And if you have some financial incentives behind user accounts, that probability is just higher. So there's that. And then the chart that talks specifically about industries and the use cases. So there's a lot of things that can be done to educate or just explain to customers like what are the different problems that they might be facing.
Yeah, awareness and understanding, visibility, and then the ability to take action. Top of mind, not just at the conference, I think in general, is a 2-letter acronym that most people can't get away from talking about in any conversation. So I'm sorry, I'm going to take us there. I want to look at this from 2 different perspectives. One is the creation of bots and activity driven by artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. Maybe some of your thoughts on that, things you're seeing in the data and the research, perhaps even from customer conversation.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, every year when I start working on this report, I'm excited because I have my set of expectations and predictions, and I've been looking into that throughout the past year. And I had some predictions in mind, and I don't know if it's nice. I mean, for me, it's nice to see that they kind of came true. For the market, maybe not. But what I thought would happen, and we're seeing that, we're going to see an increase in automated traffic for 2 reasons. The first, you mentioned the use of AI for non-technical users or less technical users to ask for it to help you write a script and similar things. And we're actually seeing attacks being orchestrated and launched through AI. And the interesting thing about it is that it's kind of reflected in the data in the report as well. Because what I said is that you're going to see more bots, but I think it's going to skew metrics into more simple bots. Because essentially at least the capabilities as they stand right now, it'll help you maybe create a simple script for a bot or things like it. You're not going to create like an all-in-one bot. It's a bot that's able to go through an entire process. Or let's say buying a sneaker. So it would put the right item in the cart, go to the checkout, complete that checkout, even defeat a CAPTCHA for you. So these are very advanced bad bots, and that's not the capabilities that are there right now. So we're actually seeing more simple bots in our data than we did before. So it's a 6% increase from last year. And that is associated with that. And the threat research team right now is working on research around attacks that were being launched using AI. And one of those particularly are actually credential stuffing attacks. So account takeover. Yeah. So there's definitely that aspect.
Impact still.
Yeah.
Even simple doesn't mean not
exactly. And as I said, it's just the beginning. We don't really know. We can speculate. We had interesting speculations of even launching a bot attack. It's just speculating, but launching a bot attack and then launching that 1,000 times on different websites and then analyzing that data and figuring out, AI helping you figure out what blocked you. And then you come the other day and try and circumvent whatever stopped you. So that's just like an assumption, but yeah.
So serious stuff like ATO and even just still bad denial of service if they're taking traffic away from legitimate stuff. So the other thing I wanted to do as we wrap here is the use of bots to target AI. So organizations presenting their interfaces for customer support. Marco and I were looking at this for some of our own use and thinking, well, non-humans come and interact with our AI chatbot. It's not cheap to have an LLM service at your disposal. People using it run the cost up. That's an example where I think bots can misuse and abuse an LLM interface.
Yeah.
Cost company money, if not create issues for the legitimate users again. So any thoughts or any signs of that?
That's actually a very interesting use case that I can definitely see a case for, because it reminds me of what we're seeing of bots targeting APIs and raising API costs for organizations, because now they have to pay for each API call that was bot driven actually, so that they're losing money for that. So I can definitely see a case for bots targeting AI that's embedded in websites, and that definitely requires protecting the paths. So there's definitely a case for that. And then one other thought I had about AI, that's the increase in automated traffic is also because of the large language models using scraping in order to train these models. Right. So that's another thing that we're seeing that's also resurfacing the debate around the legality of web scraping, because some websites do not want their proprietary content scraped, for example. So there's a lot of debate around that going on.
Triple whammy.
Exactly.
Boy, it's an incredible space, and I'm sure you have a lot of fun, and I'm grateful that you do what you do, because there are hundreds of thousands of companies that rely on that work to protect themselves from the bad stuff.
Yeah.
It's hitting the network traffic. So Erez, I want to thank you for giving us an update on the 11th year. Congratulations on that nice 11th run, and cheers to the Imperva team and the research team there at Imperva that pulled all this together and help customers.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening, and I encourage everybody to grab a copy of the Bad Bot Report, the 11th edition from Imperva. Have a read, understand, learn, apply some protections, because like we noted, your industry is certainly seeing something here if you don't recognize it yet. So hopefully this will give you some insight in what to look for. Be sure to connect with the Imperva team. Thanks, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and that you will come back for more brand stories on ITSP Magazine. If you want to share your company's brand story, go to itspmagazine.com and explore our advertising options to learn more. Remember to share this podcast with your friends, family, and colleagues, and stay tuned for more brand stories as we continue our journey toward redefining cybersecurity, technology, and society.